Give it a go, let me know. Give it a go, let me know. I can't believe I'm 34. With a little bit of sauce, saucy sauce. I said that a bit fast, Jesus, right, slow down. Zest of an onion, that sounds disgusting. But I haven't got barbecue, 5th floor flat, so 5th floor flat. 5th floor flat. Yeah, it sounds wrong, that's right. Today's cooking beer is the Heart Pale Ale, which is a Hop Nation Brewing Co. It's a Melbourne-based brewing company specialising in the production of small batch beers. Ribs. Let's make some ribs. Well, actually, I'm making Mexican-inspired barbecue rib tacos. So I'm calling these Tex Mex Ribs. So I've got some more Mexican-y inspired sort of things that I'm going to put into a dry rub, and then later on I'm going to make a barbecue sauce. So I'm going to make a dry rub for the ribs with a few more Mexican-y sort of inspired bits and pieces in there, just to give it a nod to Mexico. So I'm calling it Tex Mex because it sounds Tex Mex Tacos sounds cool. I am aware before anyone shoots at me from Texas. Texas barbecue revolves more around beef brisket. Ribs is more of a Georgia sort of thing, or maybe wherever St. Louis is, or you know. So I've got some stuff that I'm going to put together as a dry rub. Got some ribs. These are from butchers over here. They've already had the silver skin removed, but ribs usually will come underneath. There'll be like almost like cling film, plasticky sort of film across the inside of here that you'll need to pull off. It's quite easy to do. If you just get a knife, find one of the bones and get quite a sharp knife and like sort of slice along the bone, you'll see that there'll be like a little membrane that will come apart. If you then grab hold of that with some kitchen towel, kitchen paper, anything like that, and you just peel it off, and it usually all comes away in one sort of big sheet. I might trim off some of this excess fat as well, but on the whole, the fat's not going to be, the fat's going to render down, but silver skin, that's not going to go anywhere. We're going to put a dry rub on these, and it's going to sit in the fridge for, I would say, at least 2 hours, and then it's going to be another 3 hours in the oven, so it's going to take a while before your ribs are ready. I'm going to create a dry rub. I'm going to rub the meat. And then that's going to go away in the fridge for 3 hours. So I'm going to do all of that in this baking tray, so that then this baking tray, roasting tin almost, can go in the oven. We're going to put a bit of water in here and some other bits to braise this. So you're going to want a tray with a highish side. Obviously this doesn't quite fit, so I'm going to have to trim this down. Arrange that like that, so that all fits in there nicely. So actually, I'm going to go meat up to begin with. Actually, that doesn't matter too much. I don't know, you'll see why in a minute. Get that out of the way. So, put this to one side. I'm going to have a quick wash of my hands because of the raw meat. Right, wash my handsies, and now in a bowlsy, I'm going to combine a few bits and pieces. Find a measuring spoon. Right, so, I'm going to go in with a tablespoon of ground cumin. If you wanted to, you could toast cumin seeds and grind them up. I don't think you're going to get ground cumin in this sort of situation. Is be fine because it's going to be cooking for so long. Those nuances you would get from fresh ground cumin, I think you're going to lose. And also a tablespoon of, oh, it's brand new, ground coriander. So cumin, definitely kind of a common barbecue sort of spice. Coriander, a bit more pushing it towards that Mexican sort of side, like I said. And a tablespoon of, this is soft dark brown sugar. You can use Demerara. You want something that's almost kind of molassesy. So that again, very barbecue, the dark brown sugar. And those sugars are also going to caramelise when we start cooking it a bit later. And a bit more of another nod to Mexico. We're going to have, is this a teaspoon? Yep. 2 teaspoons of dried oregano. You can go fresh oregano if you want, although I wouldn't necessarily, you're not going to get anything out of it. Fresh oregano in this situation is, it's going to dry out in the oven, in the couple of hours in the fridge, and then laterally in the oven. So you might as well use dry oregano, you're not really going to get much out of that. This is hot smoked paprika, just to bring a bit of heat to the party, because we've not really got anything too spicy just yet. So a bit of hot smoked paprika. You can use sweet if you wanted. I would say definitely use smoke, because we're going to be doing this in the oven. We're not going to get any of that smokiness from anywhere apart from here, and we're going to add some smokiness in the barbecue sauce a little bit later. And last but not least, zest of a lime. Quite a common ingredient in Mexican cooking, but also it's going to freshen it all up a little bit as well. Just give us a little bit of a fresh zing. Right, try not to get zest everywhere. Grab a spoon, give that a stir, and a mix. Get everything. Might need to break the sugar up a little bit. Right, so got our dry rub, and now we are going to dry rub. Actually, I know I said you want the meat side up, but we're going to start on the underside. The underside hasn't got as much meat on it, so it doesn't matter as much, but you do still want to get some on there. Give it a pat down, make sure it's all sticking to the meat. And flip it over, and go for the meat side. Now this side you want almost like a thick crumb on the ribs. Don't be afraid to use all of your rub, because you haven't really got much else to do with it. If you want to be a bit sparing, or you went out of your way to pick up everything that goes everywhere else, what we've just made will probably do 2 racks of ribs. This cooking method works really well for ribs full stop. So if you don't want to do Mexican sort of style ribs, you can by all means do something a bit more traditional. Leave out the coriander and the lime zest. Maybe add in some cayenne pepper or some Cajun seasoning, things like that. Could even go Chinese and do with 5 spice and ginger and garlic. Right, so that is it now for at least 3 hours. I'm going to put these in I'm going to wrap them in cling film, whack them in the fridge, leave them in the fridge for 3 hours. I'd say 2 hours. At least 2 hours. Let that dry rub start to penetrate into the meat and flavour the meat. You can do this overnight. You can go, I'd say, up to maybe even 40 hours, because as long as the pork's not going to go off, there's nothing in it particularly acidic that's breaking down that meat, that's going to break down the meat to a point where it's going to start being a horrible texture. I'm going to have a clean up and come back when it's time to put these in the oven. Like I said, the whole process is going to take a while, so these are going to go in the fridge for at least 2 hours, probably be a bit longer for me. Then they're going to go in the oven and we're going to braise them, sort of. We'll get to that later, but that's going to take another 2 hours. So this is all going to take a while, but trust me, it will be worth it. Welcome back. It is 10, 11, 12, 1, so 4 hours later. Now, time for the oven. So, oven is on 140, nice and low, so we're going to braise this slow and low for 2 hours. We're going to add in almost 100 ml of water, and where are we? That's 60 ml of apple cider vinegar. A bit in there, in there. Then we're going to wrap it tightly with foil. Now, if you've got big sheets of foil, you can do the whole lot in one go, perfect. Mine only covers half the tray, so pinch it all the way around really tightly. And same for the other side. What we want is the steam to build up inside, almost like a pressure cooker. And I'm going to go back over this side, because that at the moment is just an opening. Got that all sealed up as tightly as possible. If you've got the really big foil, you can actually get away with not using a baking tray and fold it all up and over and make sure that all the fluids are kept in. But now, Oven is on 140. I'm going to put a baking tray in there, set a timer for 2 hours, and then I'll come back and we'll have a look in 2 hours time. Ribs are still in the oven. They've still got about another half hour, 25 minutes to go. But we're going to make some nice, tangy, spicy, smoky barbecue sauce that we're going to shellac on there with a brush, and then we're going to stick it under the grill. You can do it on the barbecue if you want, and get that nice and caramelised and smoky barbecue-y. Right, so to begin with, we are going to chuck into a saucepan tablespoon of olive oil. None of this has to be exact. In fact, I'm actually going to drizzle a little bit extra in there, and I'm going to crush in there 2 chunky cloves of garlic. Medium heat, medium low. I'm just going to sweat that garlic down for a few minutes, just let it soften and get itself nice and aromatic. Right, so now that's starting to get a bit aromatic, we're going to go in there with some other bits and pieces. You only want to go on a low, medium, low heat. You don't want to start frying anything off. We're just sweating stuff down and making it aromatic. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, tomato puree. Ooh, and a little bit extra for luck. Stir that in and let that cook off just a little bit. Now that tomato is starting to cook off a little bit, we're going to go in with some more of the brown sugar. Like I said, Demerara will work. You could probably also get away with just using plain molasses, but there's something about that dark brown sugar smell, like molasses, that's just very barbecue-y in and of itself. Now you want 2 tablespoons of this. I'm going to measure out teaspoons because the tablespoon's all icky with tomato paste. To bring a little acidity to the party, we want 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Right, give that a rinse because I want to add some of this spicy Chipotle chili paste. So this is from Sainsbury's. I've definitely mentioned it before. It's always in my cupboard. It's like a super smoky chili jam sort of thing. Adds a fair bit of heat, but the most important thing it's going to give us is smokiness, which we're not really going to get from anywhere else because we can't smoke stuff. Give that all a stir, get that all in. I am going to add, so I've got some leftover rub. So I'm going to add that in there. So that's just going to help tie the flavours of the two together. If you didn't have any rub left over, doesn't matter, doesn't need it, but it might as well get used somewhere. Right, and last but not least, that lime we zested earlier, we are going to chuck the juice of it in. So that's going to help brighten it all up again as well because of the acidity, but at the same time, lime brings back to a Mexican sort of tanginess. 1 whole lime's juice. Right, stir to combine. Now this should have a lovely barbecue-y tang. A fair bit of smokiness going on as well. So that's all coming together. The sugar should have dissolved by now. We're going to add about 50 ml of water just to let it all down a little bit. Give that another stir. Right, so now that's all stirred in and combined. We're going to leave that on the lowest heat we can leave it on for the 15 minutes that those ribs are left in there. Probably be a little bit longer than 15 minutes because we're going to rest them for a little bit. But just let that cook through. Let those raw spices cook out. Let that raw tomato sauce cook out. Let the raw vinegar cook out. Let all the raw stuff cook out. It will reduce a little bit. Some of that water will come back out again. So we'll end up with a nice, rich barbecue, sticky barbecue sauce. Once all that sugar's starting to caramelise and stuff. Come back, give it a stir in about 5 minutes. Just make sure nothing's burning. You might want to put it on your smallest burner if your medium burners don't go too low. But keep an eye on it. And we're back in about 15 minutes when the ribs are ready to come out. Alright then. So, been 2 hours. Tomato sauce is done. Need to find where's my pastry brush? There it is. So, with a bit of luck, you've got a basting brush, pastry brush, something that you can paint on our barbecue glaze onto our ribs with. If you haven't, it's alright, use a spoon. It's fine, not the end of the world. So, let's get the ribs out. 2 hours they've been in. I'll put them up there. Now I'm going to switch my oven to grill Turn the grill right up. There'll be hopefully a fair amount of steam in here because this has all been done up quite tight. Ow. Steamy. There's those bad boys. So, the meat should have all started pulling away from the bones. You should, I mean, be careful, they're going to be hot. But if you can get hold of one, you should be able to just see the bone is just pulling away from the meat. This step can be done a day or two, maybe 3, you'll get away with in advance, or in the morning. So if you wanted to tonight have ribs, you can get to this stage, let them cool, put them in the fridge for a couple of days with your barbecue sauce not on them, like separately. Then it comes to barbecue day, get your grill out, get the charcoal all smoldered down to the point where it's okay for cooking. Shellac your barbecue sauce glaze onto your ribs and finish your ribs off on a barbecue. Beautiful that would be. But again, as I've said before, 5th floor flat. So I'm doing that under the grill. So while that grill's coming up to heat, what I'm going to do, get that out of the way. Be careful with this, because of all the sugars and stuff in it, it's kind of almost like a caramel. It's going to stick, it's like napalm. But we're just going to get a healthy glaze going on this bad boy. No need to be shy. All of that meat should be covered. Now this should be smelling absolutely amazing. Oh, what I would say as well, unless this is a really decent, this is a quite decent quality baking tray that's non-stick, its non-stick abilities are still quite good. If your baking trays aren't that great non-stick wise, those foil disposable baking trays are really good for this, because this is all gonna bake on and cook on. So if you want to do this in a foil baking tray, that might be worth it. So whack that under the grill, and in about 5 or so minutes I'm gonna give them a flip. Right, while that's in there, we're gonna get a few accoutrements ready as well. So I've got some fresh coriander. I'm just gonna pick some coriander leaves, as much for garnish as anything, but I quite like the flavour of coriander, and again brings it back to that Mexican sort of vibe. Have a little look, make sure. Oh, you see that all bubbling away, caramelising. Like, get that another minute and I'll give it a flip. You know, we'll preheat this pan on low, because we'll warm up our tortillas and that. Right, you do need to keep an eye on it, because it will burn quite easily. That sugar in there will start to burn. Leave it a flip. Be careful. This is all really quite tender right now, and what you don't want to do is start pulling all your ribs apart. So be careful, but give it a little flippy flip. That meat is all really super tender. Now we're going to give the underside a little bit of a baste quickly as well. Don't quite need to go as heavy on the underside, because there's not really any meat under here, but I can always add a bit of extra flavour, nothing wrong with that. And we're going to wet that back under the grill for just a few minutes. Right, as soon as that's started to go bubbly and caramelise a little bit, off with the grill. If you're doing this outside, or if you've got really good ventilation, you can go another round on this side, but at this point it's really going to start smoking. So the problem you're going to have is it's going to constantly be setting off your smoke alarm. So we're just going to leave that to rest and cool down a little bit. A few extra accoutrements. So we've got our coriander, spring onion. We're just going to super fine slice some spring onion. Don't need too much, we're not going to put too much in. And a bit of iceberg lettuce. I just like as much for texture than anything. I'm going to go with a slice off a bit there, a little bit more. What we're going to do is get another chopping board. Evacuate our ribs. And I'm only going to do one set for now, just because packing space. And so with the bigger ones, you only really need the one's ribs worth of meat. So like that. Like that, you can just see that meat is just tender AF. With the smaller ones, you might want 2 ribs worth of meat. Something more like that. Now, what I'd say is this is completely good enough as it is. These ribs, beautiful. Just whack them on a plate with some fries. Have them on the run, or have them on the run as a starter. It's absolutely beautiful. We're going to whack them up, that extra, and we're going to make them into tacos. So, get tortillas. Tacos, I much prefer the little smaller tortillas. I actually prefer corn tortillas for this, but I couldn't get any. So these are small wheat tortillas. Whack them in a pan just to warm them through a little bit. And as soon as they're warmed through and they're pliable, we're not toasting them, we're just warming them through. So whack them off. So this, go for a little bit of iceberg on the bottom, just for a bit of textural crunch and freshness. A little bit of coriander down one side, and a little bit of spring onion down the other. Not too much of any of this. And we get our rib, whack it in the middle, and watch this. Beauty. Of course, you're going to want to pick the rib clean afterwards. On a plate she goes. Rinse and repeat. You can even, this sauce, drizzle a little bit of that bad boy in there as well. When it up the sauciness, she's a beaut. Try that again. Right, so a little bit of iceberg down the middle, a little bit of coriander down one side, a little bit of spring onion down one side, and then can't get a grip on the thing because it's so saucy. Beautiful. Like I said, once the ribs start to get a bit smaller, especially down here, you might want to put 2 ribs worth of meat in. But these are just blinding, they really are. And obviously, chef's privilege, have a bit of a gnaw on the bone. Most of it is so tender it just pulls off and leaves, stays in the taco. With a little bit of sauce, saucy sauce. If you want, you haven't got that. There you go, Tex Mex BBQ Rib Tacos. This, easily enough for 4 people, especially if you're going to chuck some sides on there as well. And like I said, the ribs are fine on their own. You don't have to go the Mexican route, you can just make them barbecue. But these are a game changer, they really are. Cook that meat long and slow in the oven, and the meat just slides off the bone. Slide it in a taco. You don't even need the rest of this, trust me. That on its own is beautiful. Wrap it in a bit of bread, can't go wrong. This is just a little bit of contrast and textural difference. That is absolutely beautiful. And right, it's been, I started at, what was it, 10 o'clock this morning, it's now 5:30. I've barely been in the kitchen. It's make a rub, put it on there, leave it for 2 hours, overnight, however long. Put them in a baking tray, chuck them in the oven, leave them for 2 hours. Make a bit of sauce, this is the only bit that took a little bit of effort, and even that's just chuck some stuff in a pan and let it come up to heat. It's, for how much effort actually goes into it, it's blinding how good this stuff tastes. I am going to go destroy probably all of this, because I'm a fat bastard. But trust me, these are absolutely blinding and you will not regret making them. You won't regret putting a bit of time in. Not everywhere sells ribs with a bone in. You could do this with a bit of pork belly if you really can't find ribs. But have a look around, have a look online, you can get some ribs. Try and find your local butchers. Ask him if he's got any ribs. Chances are he has. If he hasn't, he'll get them in for you. If you're really in a pinch, you can use pork belly. But it's not quite the same. Your supermarkets might have ribs, but we try and go to local. If not, have a look online, have a look at some of the online butchers, and try and go to somewhere a bit more personal than one of your big supermarkets. But yeah, so beautiful. Give it a go. Let me know. Give it a go. Let me know. I can't believe I'm 34. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Let me know yours turn out. You will not regret making these, trust me, they are banging. They're probably one of the nicest things I've ever made. But, yeah. I will see you when I see yous. Adios.